Welcome back to
Something
Ominous. This is your host, Jessica.
And I'm Karina.
And this is episode 19. So for this episode, we're going to do things a little different. My case is on the heavier side. It's pretty gruesome. So you're not going to hear an ending. Karina is going to go first. So remember to follow us on social media. TikTok is Something Ominous. Instagram is Something Ominous Podcast. And YouTube is Something Ominous.
And if you want to send us your ominous encounters, you can send them to somethingominouspod@gmail.com. Dang, I'm scared now. Is it that heavy?
Dude, it's heavy. Tengo un pinche asco. It's heavy.
Jessica.
Do you want to go?
Okay, so I'm going to go first today. And I'll be talking to you guys about the witch legend, Hannah Cranna.
Hannah Cranna?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've heard of her.
She's pretty big, I think, in New England.
Okay.
So Hannah Cranna was actually a real person. Her name was Hannah Covey. She was born in 1783 and lived in Monroe, Connecticut. She was married to Captain Joseph Hovey, and she lived a pretty quiet, uneventful life until her husband passed away in a very strange and unexpected way. One night, her husband went out for his nightly walk when he lost his footing near a cliff and somehow ended up falling off and dying. This took everyone by surprise since Joseph walked around here often and knew the area pretty well. And because the way her husband died was so bizarre, the town speculated that Hannah had placed a spell on him. They said she must have done witchcraft on him that caused him to be confused and walk off a cliff. After her husband passed away, Hannah lived alone in their large property in the woods and never remarried. She also started to dress in all black clothing with long flowy skirts. So I guess people just started seeing her giving that witch look. You know what I mean? Like she started her witch aesthetic vibes after her husband passed away.
Dude, I feel it.
Me too. I'm in that era right now. Her home was guarded by chickens and numerous snakes, as well as a rooster named Old Boreas, which the townspeople believed was her familiar.
Oh, wait, I have heard of her.
Oh, have you?
Yes.
She is big. She's kind of like I don't want to say like typical witch, but just like that classy witch from Connecticut. But yeah, so I hadn't heard the term familiar, but I've seen it before. You know how in movies witches usually have like their animal sidekick?
Sabrina, the teenage witch, had...
Yes.
What was the cat's name again?
Was it Samuel? No.
I don't know, but I think it did start with an S.
I think it was Samuel. Let's look it up.
Salem.
Duh. Oh, what? Okay, Samuel was pretty. Oh my God, Salem.
Yes. Duh. Who the fuck
wait, I'm barely connecting it right now.
Who are we?
We were like hardcore Sabrina the Teenage Witch fans.
We used to rush after school to watch.
Yeah. And then you know how they put out the Netflix? Did you ever watch it?
I did. But you know how I am when they are doing like the final season.
Yeah.
I hate to finish it. I don't know. I'm one of those that I can't let go of a show, so I will not watch the last few episodes because I know there's going to be an end.
Oh, and you don't like to...
I don't like endings
you don't like
now.
to feel the end.
I don't like to feel the end when I know it's not coming back and I enjoy the show. Like The Witcher.
Oh, okay.
I can't because I know he's not coming back.
Yeah. Okay, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I tried to watch it, but it got too like diabolical for me. Like it was really dark where I'm like, wait, this is not what I remember.
No, yeah, that one's dark.
I know. Yeah, I don't want to spoil it, but they actually show like the devil.
Yeah, they do.
And
Lucifer.
I don't know. Yeah, Lucifer. And I don't know. It was too dark. I just couldn't watch it. But yeah, and then Snow White also had, do you remember in Snow White, the witch had a crow?
Mm-hmm.
That's what a familiar is. So even before the Salem witch era, it was believed that witches had familiars, which are demonic spirits that take the form of a small animal to serve a witch. So in one article, it said that familiars are usually low-ranked demons or demons that have lesser powers. So they present as small animals such as cats, frogs, crows, and in Hannah's case, they thought it was her rooster named Old Boreas. It also didn't help that Boreas was an all-black rooster with shiny feathers, and the interesting part was that this rooster would only crow at 3 a.m. And like we all know, 3 a.m. is the witching hour. People believed during this period of time that if roosters crowed after sunset, that meant that they were communicating from the supernatural realm, which is something I never thought about. You know, roosters usually have that like 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. But if they crow like after sunset, I don't know, that it is kind of creepy if I would hear one at 1 a.m. Also, witch hunters would say that from midnight to 3 a.m. was when the diabolical forces were the strongest. And this was usually a time when witches performed satanic rituals. So really nothing was going in favor of Hannah. I mean, you know, with everything kind of connecting, like you can't really. Hannah. I know. She's like, what do I do? What do I do?
I just lost my husband and you guys are calling me a witch.
Can't do nothing. It didn't say what Hannah thought of all this, but she was actually full on taking advantage of people thinking she was a witch. Like, she would demand free food and firewood, and she would threaten to put a spell on them, like if they didn't give her what she wanted. Mm-hmm. There were several accounts of people who thought she put a curse on them. One story is of a man who went to fish for trout in a stream that ran along the back of Hannah's property. When Hannah approached the man to tell him to leave, the guy refused. Hannah was so angry, she shook her cane at him and said, "May curses fall upon you and your fishing." The guy brushed her off and continued fishing, but from that point on, he never caught a fish again in his life. And you know what we call that? Karma.
For real. I was going to be like, a good manifest.
Yeah. There was another story of a farmer's wife who baked delicious pies. One morning, Hannah smelled the freshly baked pies and went to knock on the woman's door to ask for one. But because of Hannah's reputation, the lady first refused and then tried to give her one of her smaller leftover pies. Hannah told her, "You selfish woman, may you never bake another good pie in your life." And so she never did.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
So she actually gave her a cake?
Yeah, she was like, she kind of gave her a smaller, like probably put together pie and just told her like, okay, here, you can have this. Which is so mean. Like, that one actually made me sad. This old lady coming to your door, like asking for a pie, and you're going to say no and then give her whatever. In December of 1859, Hannah's rooster, old Boreas, died. One day, a neighbor decided to check on her, and before he came in, he heard the low sound of crying coming from inside the house. Hannah allowed the man inside and let him know that the spirits were calling her to her grave. She said, and I quote, "I am not well. I have a wish to make that must be carried out following my death. I am not to be buried until after sundown, and there must be ample bearers to carry my coffin from the house to the grave. Obey my wishes if you wish to avoid trouble and vexation." Hannah passed away the following day. The neighbors ignored her wishes and decided to do the burial around noon to get it over with faster. Since it was winter season, they put her coffin on a sled to make it easier to pull all the way to the gravesite. But something strange kept happening. Her coffin kept sliding off the sled no matter how tight they would tie it on, so they had no choice but to carry the coffin through the snow all the way to her grave. By the time they made it, it was already sundown. When the crowd made it back to her home, they were surprised to find it engulfed in flames. That night, her house burned to the ground. So somehow I feel like she made it happen to where she still got what she wanted.
Yeah. She's like, no.
And they kept trying to avoid it and ended up just struggling. And you can actually go to Hannah's gravesite. Her tombstone is located in Gregory's Four Corners Burial Ground in Connecticut. And it's pretty easy to find. It's right at the front of the cemetery on a hillside, and it can be seen on the side of the road. It's said that her ghost haunts the area around her tombstone, with reports of sightings of an old woman standing in the middle of the road. The ghost will often look like she's stretching out her hands as if she's begging. The residents in this town believe that if you visit her gravesite, you must leave a small gift or token to have good fortune and avoid her following you home.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Hannah Cranna.
Didn't they say that whenever cars would pass by and see her, that they would actually crash into her graveyard, destroying her tombstone? So she technically has like a new tombstone almost every single time.
Yeah, that's her. If you look up the picture of her tombstone, it's actually really clean for having been from like 1859, 1860, the years that she passed away.
It's like the cleanest because they're wrecking into it because she's causing all these accidents.
Yeah. So she'll appear just like an old woman standing in the middle of the road, and they're trying to avoid her, so they end up crashing. Her name is actually Hannah Hovey, but on her tombstone it says Hannah Cranna. That's what they ended up calling her.
Why Cranna?
Cranna, I looked up, and it means the rocky place in Scottish. So because Oh my gosh. I think it's just the townspeople, just like what they decided to nickname her. But because her husband falling off a cliff, they started calling her Hannah Cranna because Cranna means like a rocky place.
Wait, so then is that what she wanted her tombstone to say?
I don't think so.
Fucking assholes.
I don't think that's what she wanted her tombstone to say. I think they
just did that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. That's probably why she's still showing up on her grave, like destroying it, like put my correct name. Yeah. The fuck?
This was kind of a sad one for me because I'm like, if she really is not a witch, then that's a very unfair life to live.
Yeah, people die from heartbreak. Mm-hmm. That was a heartbreak. All she had was her rooster.
Yeah.
Why am I shaking?
Chill, bro.
Dude, I'm like, dude, tengo un asco. Like, I'm not lying to you. I feel like throwing up. Maybe that's why the thing busted.
So, fun fact. Jessica wears like 3 ojo bracelets. How many do you have?
I had a total of 4, but one kept slipping off. And I was like, okay, it's meant for me to take it off. So I took it off. Mm-hmm. And then I have this one that I've had for like 3 years. Look at how black it is.
Yeah.
Maybe that means I need to clean it. And then I have this one that I got at Iglesia de Satanudos. Uh-huh. So it's not technically an ojo bracelet, but it is a protection bracelet. And then I had the one your mom gave me from Turkey.
Mm-hmm. So Jessica's at my house. This was before, of course, like starting the episode. And she comes in and says that your bracelet ripped.
Yeah. So
when you're washing your hands?
No. Okay. So I went to the restroom because you know how to use the restroom before we start recording. And I was drying my hands and I hear a pop and hear things falling. And I was like, oh shit, I broke something in the restroom. What did I break? So I look around and I see the little evil eye. And I'm like, wait, that looks like my bracelet. And I look and there's like the bracelet busted and it's hanging on my hand. So I pick up every single little piece and I'm like, Karina, you're not going to believe what just happened. And she's like, what? And I show it to her and she's like, So then I was like, I think I'm supposed to throw this out or bury it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So then I go to the street and I just like acted like a maniac in the middle of the street and just threw my hands up in the air and let it land in the middle of the street. Far from Karina's house.
Trying to look for like any little bead. Yeah, so we're trying to figure out what that means. What does it mean when your ojo bracelet rips?
I was told that it means it did its deed.
Like someone was trying to do ojo on you or something?
I think so. Or just protecting me from something. I don't know. Yeah. All right. Well, it's my turn. So huge trigger warning for this section. I will talk about femicide, sexual and physical abuse, dismemberment, and cannibalism. If these are topics you cannot handle, please skip this section. This case is very heavy, so leave when it gets too heavy for you. Femicide is the intentional murder of a woman or girl committed by a man because of the fact that they are a woman. In Spanish, is known as feminicidio. Mexico has one of the highest numbers of femicides that sadly continues to grow, with an average of between 9 and 10 women murdered daily by a man. On April 9th, 2022, missing law student from Monterrey, Nuevo León, Devani Escobar disappeared after a night out. A picture of her standing on the side of the road after getting off of an Uber ride where she was made uncomfortable by the driver circulated all over the internet.
I've heard of this case.
Yeah. Yeah, you remember the picture.
This was pretty big, yeah.
Pretty big, yeah. Her body was found 13 days later inside a water reservoir in a motel. Police searched this motel previously and found nothing. Devani's family questioned how well the police did their investigation because, as most of us know, the police and government are mostly corrupted in Mexico. Mexican police and investigators tried to find ways to put blame on the victim for their murders. They do this so they're able to close the case as fast as they can and avoid speaking of the violence women face on the daily. In Devani's case, authorities claim she fell into the water reservoir, causing her death when she hit her head and drowned. The family wasn't okay with the findings, so they had a second autopsy. This autopsy revealed sexual and physical abuse prior to her death. Devani wasn't the only victim of femicide in 2022. The case of Ariadna Lopez enraged the public when a video of a man carrying her body over his shoulder and stuffing it in his SUV surfaced. Initially, the Attorney General, Uriel Carmona, investigators, and the medical examiner blamed her for her death. They said she was intoxicated and choked to death on her vomit. She was found lying on her back, dumped near a bridge in the state of Morelos. Her beige dress was pulled over her waist, a white top on her right foot. When the man in the video was identified, they quickly found out that he knew the Attorney General of Morelos. Carmona was later charged with obstructing the investigation, and they believed he was working on a cover-up and was a corrupted politician. This isn't the end of Devani and Ariadna's case, though. Both cases were mishandled and not taken serious by police. There's a deep-rooted culture of machismo in Mexico where women are not appreciated and they're seen as less than a man. Majority of your police officers in Mexico are men. So just let that sink in, because these are the men investigating missing and murdered women. Secretariado Ejecutivo del Sistema Nacional de Seguridad Pública, or SESNSP, said there were 947 femicides out of 2,808 homicides of women in 2022. Keep in mind that the numbers may be higher because police are not always ruling the cause of death correctly to not label them as femicides. With this, I start the case of El Cannibal de Atizapán, whose name is Andrés Mendoza, of 72 years old. So, majority of my case was based on a documentary that was produced by the Suprema Corte de Justicia de la Nación, or Supreme Court of Justice of the Nation. And I will put the link to the archive that I found online where you can watch this documentary in Spanish. It's nowhere else because this documentary was released maybe twice, like in 2022, and because it was made and produced by the government, they didn't put it out on Netflix or anything. So it's like archived, but I'll put the link if you want to watch it. It's a 5-episode series. When wife and mother of 2, Reina González Amador, went missing, no one expected that by finding her body inside the home of Andrés Mendoza would uncover a serial killer. This is considered the bloodiest, deadliest, and most gruesome case of femicide in Mexico's history. Andrés was originally from Oaxaca. After his move to Mexico, he would travel back and forth from Mexico City to Oaxaca to visit family. Not much is known of his family's background, but one thing they say is that the entire family struggled in the education department. They struggled reading, writing. One of the detectives, or I think he was the mayor of Oaxaca, said that they were on the slower spectrum. They believed Andrés was an active serial killer for around 30 years prior to his capture. He went undercover by working with the city council and being a municipal president. He was your neighborhood watch and pushed for more security in the neighborhood he lived in. He gathered meetings with the community and the cops to discuss security measures and crimes around the area.
Dang, so he was like in disguise, kind of.
In disguise, yeah. The cops even knew him by name. Andrés put on a front like he was your trusted neighbor and made sure he blended well, even with the cops. The neighbors knew him as El Chino. He was known as a serious man, lonely but humble. He never messed with anyone, but was always there if any of the neighbors needed his help. Neighbors recall that he was very attentive, but especially to women. They say he was very giving and even offered some of the women in the neighborhood jobs for a food dispensary he worked for. Andrés lived and was part owner of a vecindad, so like apartments. I was trying to figure out what the English translation to that was, but I don't know what they're called. But pretty much, they're not your typical apartment. They have a central patio and residents share facilities like the bathroom and kitchens.
Yeah, it's really hard to explain.
Yeah.
I guess you would call it like a really small apartment complex, kind of like the middle of apartments that always have the middle like pool thing, right? Is that kind of what it is?
Yeah, but the thing is that these apartments didn't have bathrooms or kitchens. So it's like a vecindad. Do you remember like Mariela del Barrio? How she lived in a vecindad and then everyone shares the bathroom, everyone shares the washing area, the kitchen, but the rooms are like out there, like that. Residents say he had an altar of the Virgin Mary outside in the patio and attended church every Sunday. He made sure he gained the community's trust so he can gain votes and funds he received from his political party he worked for. The owner of the corner store from where Andrés lived recalls that every evening he would burn stuff, but whatever he was burning gave off a horrible smell. She described the smell like the smell of dead animals. Other neighbors talk about his drunken ways. Once he was drunk, his entire demeanor changed. One neighbor remembers seeing specks of blood on the sleeve of his shirt, which made her feel a little uneasy. She frequently thinks back and wonders if that was the blood of a victim he'd murdered that day. On May 15, 2021, Reina was found dismembered on a table in the home of Andres. When she didn't show up to her house, her husband Bruno made a missing persons report. Bruno was a commander in the police department of Atizapán. When he realized that his own department wasn't taking his wife's missing persons report serious, he took action. Knowing how to properly investigate a case, he started by tracking her phone. Bruno says that with the help of Reina's sister and her husband, they start tracking Reina's phone. It's not clear if she was sharing locations, but I'm assuming she was because Bruno was able to track her or ping her phone. And with this, he went around the area and looked for security cameras to follow his wife's footsteps. He was able to get a few camera footages where you could clearly see Reina walking down the street. Bruno, Reina's husband, was the one to find her body. It took 24 hours from the time he started his own investigation to the time he found her body. What an entire police department couldn't do, Bruno did with 2 others. Just think of what would happen if these departments actually did their job and got to work.
Yeah, like how many more women would actually be found? And men tried. Like not just women be found, but men tried.
Yeah.
For what they've done.
When Bruno arrived looking for his wife, Andres was there. Between Bruno and Reina's brother-in-law, they apprehended him until police arrived. When they start the investigation, they noticed a bunch of women's clothing, purses, shoes, makeup. They describe his home having the scent of death masked with vinegar and perfume. In Mexico, their firefighters are not only used to tame fires, they use them when digging is involved. And according to one of the firefighters at the scene, they start moving furniture around so they can start digging for bodies, and they noticed that the sofa they moved was full of blood. Some of the blood was old blood. A wooden table had remnants of human flesh and dried blood. They find IDs, a bunch of them. There were knives and a butcher knife with fresh blood, which they can tell was used to dismember Reina's body. There was a fridge. In the freezer of the fridge, they found a tongue. And let me be clear, it was a human's tongue. Yeah.
What the heck?
They also found a tray of blood with chile and tortillas.
What? Okay, hold on. They found a tray of blood.
Full of blood. He would eat the blood with la cocinaba. He would cook it with chile and eat it with tortillas. Oh. On another corner, he had the women's shoes that I was talking about, the purses and the makeup. And one of the firefighters said that that area where all of that was smelled like rotten flesh. The house looked like a hoarder's house. Like it seemed like there was junk everywhere, but they believed it was done on purpose. And officers had to make sure that they didn't get things mixed up. They start excavating and find around 29 bodies. They drop the bathroom walls only to find bones between the columns. People that lived in the vecindad said that he was the one that kept up with the gardening and anything that had to be fixed around the house. He didn't want anyone helping or touching anything because he said he liked to do things himself. They now know that he didn't want anyone interfering, so they won't find any of the hidden bones he dug up. Andres built a basement which the neighbors or people living in the vecindad had no idea. He did all his killings and buried some of the bodies in that basement. When they went downstairs to the basement, the first thing officers and firefighters saw was the bloody table where Reina's body was found. On another table, there was a cup with blood and a plate with a piece of meat that was bitten and tortillas on the side. They believe that this was human meat.
Oh my God.
They take out dishes that had leftover cooked meat, which they also believe was human meat. They find all types of body parts like fingers, skin, a lot of blood. They found video recordings with the names and dates of the victims. He would record the dismemberment. He was a sick-minded individual.
Like video record?
Yeah, he would video record it because he was fucking sick in the head.
Yeah.
They found a notebook with more than 30 women names. Next to their name was the date and weight. So he would weigh each of their body parts after dismembering their body. Andres was once a butcher, so he knew how to perfectly cut and dismember a body. They think that because of that, he also weighed his victims' body parts. He was so used to doing that, so he followed it on with his murders. Andres would give away food like tamales and carnitas.
No.
Yeah. Not only would he give away extra food, but he would also sell carnitas. That's why I'm like, dude, tengo asco.
Ew.
Police that patrolled the area were constantly fed by him as a way of saying thank you for doing their job. It's believed that this meat came from his victims.
Oh my gosh.
Not only was he giving food in his neighborhood, but he was also taking pounds of carnitas to Oaxaca, where his family was, and would give it away out there. He said that they would give him this meat. Because they would give him this meat, he was making carnitas and giving it away. So like his thing was, they're giving it to me, so I want to give back to the community. That was his thing. So now that they know what really went on, everybody's like, did we fucking eat human meat?
Dude, imagine.
After much digging, they found more than 3,000 pieces of bones. They were having to shuffle through dirt because a lot of the bones were burned or they were very small, making it hard to identify all his victims. They had to bring in cadaver dogs because there were body parts everywhere. Sadly, they stopped investigating and digging for more clues. Police got tired and didn't continue because they said they had enough evidence. Not every woman was identified and put to rest. Women activists were angry that police didn't do more for the women. They wanted investigators to search his family's home in Oaxaca because his sister owned land out there, and they believed that when he would take his trips to Oaxaca, he would also take bodies and bury them out there.
Dude, that's so fucked up.
That is fucked up. And that's the thing with femicides, that police don't give a fuck either. Like, it's rare for you to find one that actually cares. And when you watch this documentary, a lot of the women there are like, you know, trying to fight for women that are not identified. Like, who the heck is going to go out there and just say like, well, you know what? There's enough bodies here. Like, we've have enough evidence to put them to rest and not care about identifying other bodies. I know it happens, but if you have a list of women, why not investigate?
Yeah, or like recover their bodies to give back to the family.
Yeah.
So that they can have some peace with that, you know? But they're like, oh, we have enough evidence to try. No, that's not just... Like, they don't give a shit about the women.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And when this happened, it sparked so much controversy that I think a lot of it too had to do with the fact that they couldn't recover a lot of the body parts because he would burn them or eat them.
Like cook them and everything, yeah.
Yeah, so it was hard. But I feel like if you have a notebook, I mean, I'm not an investigator, but I feel like if I have a notebook with a name, I'm going to investigate what the heck is going on. Like, why this name? Another thing is that they said that he was possibly inspired by Hannibal Lecter, the movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've never watched that movie.
It's kind of sick. On the documentary, he's asked if he has ever eaten human meat. He immediately looks down and says no, playing with his hand and rubbing his face, and then says, ¿Qué más? ¿Qué más?
¿Ha comido carne humana? No. ¿Qué más? ¿Qué más?
During his court hearing, he described what he did to Reina, saying that he removed the skin from her face because she was very pretty. He said, "What has been done is done. The husband is there. He saw everything."
¿Cómo asesinó a Reina?
Puñalada. Pues ahí donde, al pecho, en el corazón.
Andrés no solo asesinó a Reina, sino que también la desmembró. ¿Por qué?
¿Qué pensaba yo? No, para no tirarlo lejos, pues se lo cae poquito y si tengo sábana, pues lo envuelvo y lo entierro.
It's so sad.
No.
Imagine the trauma he's going through.
Look how he found her.
From all his victims, Reina Amador, Rubicela Castillo, and Flor Vizcaino were some of the few identified and laid to rest. Andres received 55 years in prison, most likely dying in prison. Because if he gets out, he'd be like 127 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was what? 70?
He was 72 when he was caught.
Okay.
They say he started in the 1990s, 1992 as his first victim, but they believe it was way before that.
Mm-hmm. So how was it that the vecindad didn't hear anything, or how was it that they didn't see any of these women coming in?
So majority of the women he met at bars. So he would take them back home, and they were already drunk, and it was late at night. Remember, he made the basement, so he would take them down there to either continue drinking or try to make a move on them. When they would tell him no, he would then stab them to death. With Reina, they just said that he told one of the neighbors there was going to be a woman coming by to pick something up and to let her know, like, you know, let her in the house and he will be there and he'll make her something to eat. And then he stabbed her. So nobody really questioned Reina, which I think is odd because someone knew about her. And this was during the day. But with the other women, it was at night after going out and drinking. And I think that's why he also created the basement, so there was no noise. And like I said earlier, people didn't even know there was a basement.
Yeah, and basements aren't really common in Mexico, I don't think.
Well, at least where we go, I haven't seen a basement.
What did Reina go for, though? Did it ever say?
Yeah. So she was starting like a cell phone business, and the husband said that they used to help him out because he was elderly. So they felt bad for him. They used to help him out like financially or if he needed help with anything. So because of that, Andres was going to give Reina something for her business. She was just going to go and pick up some of the parts, and that's it. The police did such a horrible job on her investigation. They were just trying to shut it, that they said that he was the lover. Wow. And yeah. So the husband's like, no, that's not, like, I know my wife. That's not the case. We know him. And he's just pretty much trying to clear the air. Like, my wife would never do that. He wasn't her lover. Like, come on now.
Right.
You see this man. And then you see her husband. Nada que ver. Like, there's no way she's going to want a 72-year-old man as her lover. Yeah. So this is what the police narrative, or what the police was trying to push out there. All to not rule this as a femicide. Wow. Crazy how women are treated in Mexico. I mean, everywhere, but Mexico is huge on that. I think they had a march last month.
Yeah, they did actually. I saw some videos of that.
It's so many missing women, and the police don't bother to investigate. They just kind of like let it go. They were also bribing one of the family members. They were trying to bribe him with money. They told him that if he gave them money, they would give him her phone records. Wow. Police pretty much leave the entire investigation on the family's hands. Yeah. It's crazy.
Because, I mean, her husband and like the brother-in-law found her.
And it's only because he was a detective or like a police officer. Yeah, imagine if he wasn't. Yeah. Imagine if it was you and I. I mean, I probably would like go fucking crazy. But there's people that can't. And he went dressed as a police officer. And when he got there, he ended up asking for backup. So that helped him. Oh, and on the documentary, the owner of the corner store said that one day she remembers that there was a woman that was knocking really hard on the Sawan door. And then asked the lady if she can call the cops. And that the store owner was like, why do you want to call the cops? And she's like, tiene mi amiga y no la quiere dejar salir. So he has my friend and doesn't want to let her out. The store owner says that she let her call the cops, but she had to go to work. So she had to go open up the store. And she doesn't know what happened after that. And nobody really knows what happened after that. She doesn't know if the cops showed up. She doesn't know if he finally opened up the door and let her friend go out, or if they just kind of ignored the case.
Oh, wow. Or like what happened to the friend? I'm pretty sure her friend would have kept trying to find
her friend.
Yeah, her friend in there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she would have, but I wonder if maybe she lost hope because nobody cared or nobody paid attention. But they really don't know. Like, they don't know if she ever went back after they discovered that he was a serial killer, or if he finally let the friend out. And then maybe the friend did try to put a police report and they didn't take her serious. I mean, who knows? Nobody really knows. But this is just what the corner store owner recalls from
that encounter.
Yeah. The police did such a horrible job. They leaked the list and pictures before it even went to trial. Everything was leaked in the dark web, on social media, Twitter. The list that I talked about where he weighed his victims and the organs, everything was leaked. So that kind of compromised the investigation. Because he was old, women trusted him. They felt comfortable with him. He somehow made them feel comfortable. To all the women, femicide is not just an epidemic in Mexico. There are crimes on women happening all over the world. Be safe. Don't trust anyone. And as sad as it is, make sure you have something to protect yourself. If you feel uncomfortable around someone, walk away. Ask for help. Don't be shy and be loud. Talk to you on our next episode. Bye.
Bye.